They say life doesn't unravel in a single moment, but disintegrates gradually with cracks forming long before they are noticed. However, in just one sentence, my entire world collapsed. Emily stood by the door adjusting the sleeve of her dress, wearing a light smile on her lips. She looked stunning, as she always did when we used to go out together. The difference this time was that I wasn't the one awaiting her at the dinner table. "I'm heading out on a date now," she mentioned casually as if it were a routine errand. "Hope you won't be too jealous." At first I couldn't comprehend. My mind refused to accept it. I stared at her, scrutinizing her expression for any hint that it was a bizarre joke. Yet she simply grabbed her purse, checked her reflection in the mirror, completely unfazed, completely normal. It was as if she hadn't just shattered the core of our marriage with those few words. A part of me almost chuckled, tempted to ask a date with who. Because in what world does a wife utter such words to her husband? My voice remained stuck in my throat as my hands resting on the countertops suddenly went numb. When I finally managed to speak, it came out barely more than a whisper. She turned to me sighing as if I were the one being difficult. "I met someone okay. I've been seeing him for a while, and I don't want to lie to you, so I figured honesty was best." "You always said you respected honesty, right?" Her audacity was astounding as she looked at me expecting gratitude for ripping my heart out with such nonchalance. My stomach twisted into knots and my fingers clenched into fists against the cold granite of the counter. She's joking. She has to be joking. But she wasn't. She was already slipping on her heels, humming softly, acting as if this were just another Saturday night, ignoring the months of lies and betrayal she had just confessed to. Something inside me snapped. "You expect me to sit here while you go out?" My voice shook with disbelief. She shrugged. "I don't see why you'd be upset. It's not that I don't love you. I do. I crave something different." She tilted her head. "I'm certain you comprehend." Remembering the times I sacrificed sleep to complete work projects for our dream vacation, planned surprises for birthdays, and comforted her during emotional moments, it all flashed through my mind. I had always been there for her, without any doubts. And now she desired change. I felt suffocated, unable to breathe in the small room filled with stifling tension. Despite the urge to react impulsively, all I did was stand there with my heart pounding, witnessing the woman I had devoted everything to adjusting her makeup in the mirror before heading out to meet an unfamiliar man. I realized I couldn't ignore this. I wouldn't scream or plead. I wouldn't. As she confidently walked out the door, believing she could break me without consequence, she was in for a surprise. She sought a new experience, and she was about to receive it. Contrary to her expectations of me passively waiting for her return, I had different plans. I observed her departure, as if she was off for a casual gathering with friends, oblivious to the betrayal of the one who had given her his all. The clacking of her heels on the floor felt like a piercing sensation in my head. I anticipated a moment of hesitation or a flicker of regret as she left, but she showed none. She didn't even glance back. With the click of the door, silence enveloped the room. My knuckles clenched the counter so tightly they paled, my heart pounding in my ears, and my stomach churned with such intensity I feared I might be sick. Every part of me urged me to chase after her, demand an explanation, shout, plead, do something. Yet I remained rooted in place, consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't even begin to list the emotions flowing through me. Anger, betrayal, humiliation. The latter piercing me the most. Standing in our home, she calmly informed me of her departure to be with another man, as if it was a mundane occurrence. It was as if she expected me to just sit there and accept it. Turning away from the door, my thoughts raced. Did she really think she could just walk away like that? It wasn't just the infidelity that hurt. It was the utter absence of regret, the way she uttered those words with a smirk, as if finding amusement in my pain, as if I was meant to simply comprehend. A bitter laugh escaped me. Oh, I understood, all right. I realized that I had spent the past 9 years in marriage to a woman who never truly appreciated me. Me, a woman who regarded me as a safety net, a backup plan, someone who would always remain by her side regardless of her actions. She assumed I would wait. She assumed she could freely indulge in her desires and then return to me whenever she pleased. Incorrect. Grabbing my phone, my fingers trembling, I scrolled through my contacts, determined to find a way forward. Contacts. There was one person I needed to talk to. After 2 rings, a familiar voice answered. It was my best friend Adam, whom I had known since college. He was the one person who could calm me down from the raging emotions inside me. "She left," I croaked. There was a moment of silence before he asked, "What do you mean she left?" I hesitated, struggling to believe the words as I spoke them. "She told me she was going on a date," looked me in the eye, and said it so casually. I could hear him exhale sharply on the other end. "No way, she actually said that," he responded. I let out a bitter chuckle, yet like she was just telling me what she had for lunch. After a long pause, he finally asked, "So what now?" It was indeed the million-dollar question. What now? I had choices. I could call her, unleash my anger, demand an explanation. I could plead with her to stay to fight for our marriage like a desperate man unaware he was already defeated. Or I could ensure that when she returned expecting me to be in the same place she left me, the entire world would be turned upside down. I took a deep breath, steadying my hand. "I need your help," I said. Adam didn't hesitate. "Name it," he replied. I surveyed the house, the place she had thought she could use as a waiting room while going off to entertain another man. This place would no longer be her safe haven. "Meet me at my place in 30 minutes, I instructed, hanging up and immediately getting to work. The first task was grabbing a suitcase. I wasn't the one leaving. That was her job. But I intended to ensure that when she returned, her bags would already be packed. Starting with her closet, I packed dress after dress, pair after pair of shoes, all the items she had purchased with our money, stuffing them into the suitcase, as though they held no significance, because now they didn't. Midway through, Adam arrived. "Wow," he muttered, surveying the scene. "You're really doing this," I said as I zipped the suitcase shut with more force than necessary. "She doesn't get to treat me like this and come back expecting anything." Adam ran a hand through his hair, clearly trying to process what was happening. "Man, I knew she was selfish. But this is another level." I clenched my jaw. "I'm done being her backup plan." He nodded slowly, then glanced toward the living room. "So what's next?" I already knew. "Help me change the locks." Adam let out a low whistle. "Damn." I met his gaze, my expression firm. She walked out like I was just supposed to wait, like she could come back whenever she felt like it. I crossed my arms. I want her to come home and realize she made the biggest mistake of her life. Adam gave a slow nod. "All right, man. Let's do it." 2 hours later, the locks were changed, her things were packed, and I was sitting on the couch drinking a beer, waiting. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I wanted her to think everything was normal, that she could just waltz back in and resume life like nothing had happened. She had no idea what was waiting for her, and when she finally walked back through that door, she was in for a surprise. The shock of her life hit me as I waited in silence. The atmosphere in the house had shifted, now feeling emptier in a positive way. It wasn't just a living space anymore. It was where I had made a stand. No longer would I be taken for granted, no longer would I tolerate being deceived, while my wife flaunted her affair, assuming I would passively accept it. The clock on the wall marked the passing minutes. 10:45 p.m., then 11:15, then 11:30. She was late. I questioned if she even bothered to keep track of time, or if she was engrossed in her dalliance, be it in a car or a fancy restaurant, thinking she could indulge in this new affair consequence-free. A peculiar calm washed over me. After hours of turmoil and feeling like my world was crumbling, now I felt a sense of clarity. She was on the verge of a rude awakening she never anticipated. I heard a car door slam outside, followed by the echo of heels against the pavement. I remained seated on the couch, unfazed. The doorknob jiggled, then rattled more aggressively as she tried to enter. With a pause, the sound of 3 sharp knocks broke the silence. "What on earth?" Emily's voice pierced through the night. I allowed the moment to linger, relishing it. Then at last I rose, made my way to the door, and unlatched it. Not to invite her in, but just enough to block the doorway. She gazed up at me, frustration etched on her features. Her makeup remained impeccable, yet a faint lipstick smear at the corner of her mouth hinted at a recent encounter. A lipstick shade not intended for me. Glancing past me, confusion knit her brows. "Why isn't my key working?" I folded my arms. "Because the locks have been changed." Her mouth slightly agape, her eyes searched my face as if questioning whether this was a jest. You changed the locks." I maintained my composure. "That's correct." She released a disbelieving, breathless chuckle. "Come on, darling, you're overreacting. Let me in." I remained immobile. "Why?" Her blink revealed her bewilderment at the query. What do you mean why? Leaning against the doorframe, my tone level, I responded. Why should I let you back in? You left the house without discussing it with me, like I was just a background character in your life. So Emily convinced me. She dismissed my concerns, claiming it was just one date. Despite the tightening in my chest, I remained composed. I pointed to her suitcase by the door. Your things are packed. It's time for you to leave. She looked surprised, thinking I was joking. But as she realized I was serious, she tried to downplay the situation. I maintained my resolve, making it clear that she didn't understand the impact of her actions. My voice was firm as I explained that she had crossed a line. That door. I thought I'd be sitting here waiting for you as if nothing had happened. Thinking that you could explore something new, and then return finding me ready to welcome you back with open arms. As I approached closer, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face for the first time that night. I shook my head. That's not how it works, Emily. You wanted an open door and you have it. But it's a one-way passage. You can't just walk back through it. She swallowed, her expression changing slightly. I thought you valued honesty, she said. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. This isn't honesty. This is you flaunting it in my face. Making sure I'm well aware that I wasn't enough for you, that you desired something different. I crossed my arms and continued, so go pursue that something new, but don't expect to come back to me when you discover it wasn't worth it. Her demeanor shifted, showing signs of being unsettled for the first time that night. You can't be serious, you're just upset, she protested. Oh, I'm definitely angry, I interrupted, but I'm also done. I headed back into the house. Picking up her suitcase in silence, I placed it outside the door without uttering another word. This is insane, she murmured, her voice shaky. No, I replied firmly, meeting her gaze. What's insane is thinking you could betray me and still expect to come home like nothing happened. She stood before me, waiting for me to yield, but I stood my ground. It was the first time in our entire relationship that she saw a hint of defiance in my eyes. This was not the submissive response she anticipated. She believed she held all the power, that she could control the situation. She was mistaken. Glancing at the suitcase once more as if contemplating her next move, she hesitated. I said nothing more. Words were unnecessary. As I closed the door, shutting her out, it signified not only her exclusion from the house, but also from my life. And that was just the beginning. A quiet and unsettling silence enveloped the house. It was not an eerie silence that came with abandonment, but a tranquil, profound kind. It was the sound of closure, the end of something long overdue. In the past, I stood there for a moment, my hand holding onto the doorknob, tightly straining to hear any sound. Initially, there was silence. Then a few moments later, I caught the sound of her sharp exhale, followed by a shuffle and an irritated stomp on the porch. I thought it was good for her to dwell on it, to come to terms with the reality that the man she believed would always be there, her safety net, her last resort, the person who would patiently wait regardless of the circumstances, had just closed the door on her. Subsequently, the predictable pounding began. Are you kidding me? She yelled. Leaning against the wall beside the door, I crossed my arms. I chose not to respond. Instead, I allowed her words to linger in the air, permitting her to take in her own voice. You're really throwing me out despite everything we've been through. Her tone carried a hint of disbelief, as if she couldn't fathom the unfolding events, as if I were the irrational one for not allowing her to take advantage of me. I remained quiet. She pounded on the door once more, this time with more force. I haven't done anything wrong. It was just a date. It wasn't like I slept with him or anything, which prompted a brief, humorless chuckle from me. That seemed to be the new benchmark for what was acceptable and what wasn't. Betrayal still counted. I remained silent, observing as she began to steer the conversation in a different direction. After a moment of quiet, she made another attempt, this time with a softer tone. Babe, come on. Let's not blow this out of proportion. And there it was. The damage control, the subtle manipulation to portray me as the unreasonable one. I shook my head internally. She failed to grasp the situation. Another pause, followed by a sigh and a change in approach. Are you really willing to throw away everything we've built over one night? Now she valued what we had built together. Now she wanted to discuss our relationship, our shared history. Now she sought to evoke guilt in me. I finally broke the silence, my voice steady. You threw it away the moment you decided to go. On the night of our date, her reaction was palpable even through the closed door. "That's not fair," she retorted sharply. "I was honest with you." I took a deep breath, rubbing my temples. Being honest doesn't excuse betrayal, Emily. You can't justify hurting someone just because you were upfront about it. There was a moment of silence, a rare instance of her speechless. I made my decision, unlocking the door and stating firmly, "Your belongings are outside. You can collect them and leave." I walked away without looking back. Her voice followed me, but I paid it no mind as I settled on the couch in the living room, turning on the TV not for the content, but to send a clear message. "I'm not waiting for you anymore." Soon after, the echoing sound of suitcase wheels on the sidewalk signaled her departure, followed by a lasting silence. The next morning marked a fresh start. As I woke up the next morning, I had braced myself for feelings of emptiness, regret, and that familiar sinking sensation in my chest after making a big mistake. Surprisingly, those emotions didn't surface. Instead, I felt a sense of relief that had been absent for a long time. Getting out of bed, I stretched and surveyed my surroundings. The house looked unchanged with its familiar furniture and layout, yet it felt different. Lighter, fresher, as if a storm had passed through and left behind a breath of fresh air. No more walking on eggshells, no more returning home with the nagging worry that my wife secretly resented me or was involved with someone else behind my back. No more need for pretense. Finally, after years, I could breathe freely. And just as I felt a wave of gratitude from the universe, my phone buzzed with a message from Adam. "Dude, check Emily's social media now." Perplexed, I furrowed my eyebrows and opened Instagram, my fingers moving intuitively through the app. It didn't take long to see what he was referring to. At the top of my feed was Emily's latest post, a selfie capturing tears in her eyes. Caption: "I watched in disbelief as everything crumbled around me in an instant. I believed in the authenticity of our relationship. I never intended to cause harm." I couldn't help but scoff sarcastically. She was casting herself as the victim of the situation. It was clear she wouldn't acknowledge walking out on our marriage, or the hurtful words she spoke when she declared her intention to go on a date. Instead, she painted herself as the one who was wrong, the misunderstood figure in this narrative of our relationship's dissolution. I wasn't angry. I was simply resigned. Turning off the app, I tossed my phone onto the table and made my way to the kitchen. She could share her version of events online. I had no need to defend myself. Ultimately, she was the one who left a promising union behind, who thought she could have it all without consequences. Now she would have to face the repercussions of her actions. As for me, that morning's first sip of coffee tasted like liberation. Bitter and strong, the morning sunlight painted a golden glow outside the kitchen window as I stood there contemplating the brand new day ahead. However, life had other plans as my phone buzzed once again with a message from Adam. "Dude, she's really going off now. Check Facebook," he urged. With a resigned sigh, I knew exactly what awaited me. Emily wasn't one to go down without a fight. Caught off guard the night before, she was now regrouping and reshaping the narrative to paint herself as the victim of circumstance. Launching Facebook, I scrolled briefly before encountering her lengthy, melodramatic post. "It's surreal how someone can walk away after years together, deciding you don't matter anymore," she lamented. I'd always believed in love's power to foster understanding, growth, and acceptance of each other's needs. But it seems I was mistaken. Some individuals just can't handle honesty, she concluded. I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly at her skewed perspective. Honesty, that's what she termed it. I observed my former partner's face as she went on a date with another man, portraying me as the one who had left her. As I scrolled through the comments, I found the real entertainment in the reactions. Her friends, unaware of the full story, rushed to console her with messages like, "OMG, what happened? You deserve better, girl. If he couldn't handle your truth, then he wasn't the one. Some men are just too insecure. You'll find someone who appreciates you for who you are." I couldn't help but roll my eyes at their misguided support, as true appreciation shouldn't involve disrespecting your spouse by dating others. Finally, a comment from someone in the know shed light on the situation. "Wait, didn't you literally tell him you were going on a date with another guy and then get mad when he didn't wait around for you?" A smirk crossed my face as the narrative began to shift. Some commenters requested more details, while others hesitated to jump on the sympathy bandwagon. A few even questioned why she was taken aback by my actions. I had packed up her belongings and instructed her to leave, but Emily remained unresponsive. She had anticipated receiving sympathy and support, yet instead found herself facing questioning and confrontation, confronting the reality she had been avoiding. Frustrated, I closed the app and set my phone down on the counter. Her online words couldn't change the undeniable truth. With a finality, she exited, and I closed the door behind her, putting an end to that chapter. I had not anticipated further interruptions. By afternoon, I had decided to steer clear of social media, refusing to spend my day witnessing Emily's attempts to salvage her reputation. I had more productive plans in mind, relishing the tranquility of my home without the need to tread lightly. However, this peace was unexpectedly short-lived. At 3:00 p.m., the doorbell rang, catching me off guard. Without any prior notice from Adam, I pondered the possibility of it being the delivery. Approaching the door cautiously, I peered through the peephole and was taken aback to find Emily standing there, clad in a casual sweater and jeans, arms crossed, with a look of determination on her face. He had been awake all night, unable to sleep. When I heard the knock on the door, I hesitated before finally opening it. I didn't do it because I wanted to have a conversation or let her back in, but because I wanted her to see the expression on my face. Leaning against the doorframe, I asked, "What do you want, Emily?" Her lips parted, seemingly anticipating a warmer reception. "Can we talk?" she inquired, brushing her hair behind her ear. I stood firm, recalling our conversation from the previous night. We already did that, I reminded her, not budging from my position. "Can I at least come in?" she pressed. Letting out a small laugh, I replied no. This caught her off guard and her eyes narrowed slightly. "Come on, don't be childish," she urged. Folding my arms, I retorted, "Childish? You're here expecting to walk back into the home you left to go on a date with another man, and now I'm the childish one." Her jaw tightened in frustration. "You're being ridiculous," she shot back. Meeting her gaze, I tilted my head. "Am I? Tell me, Emily, what did you think would happen? Did you expect to waltz back and sit down for coffee and act as if nothing had occurred? Should I just pretend it never happened?" As she swallowed nervously for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Her expression shifted from hesitation and doubt to realization. She had initially thought I was bluffing, believing this was just a temporary tantrum and that I would eventually back down. But I was not playing games. "You made your choice," I said calmly. "Now you have to live with it." She exhaled and shook her head, unable to understand why I was willing to throw everything away over one mistake. I raised an eyebrow in response. Throwing everything away? I wasn't the one treating our marriage like an endless social experiment. Her gaze faltered briefly as she looked down. "I just wanted something different," she admitted. My stomach twisted in response. "Then you should have left before doing this, Emily. Before turning me into someone you expected to silently endure it all." She blinked in surprise. "So that's it? That's it?" Silence followed, and for the first time she appeared lost. She was not accustomed to this version of me, the one who didn't give in, who wouldn't go to great lengths to mend things, and who didn't always hold everything together. Stepping back inside, I said, "Goodbye, Emily." I closed the door behind me, knowing it was the final time I would do so. The door clicked shut, and this time I didn't hesitate or doubt myself. I didn't look back to listen for her footsteps, questioning my decision. Emily had already made her choice when she began treating our marriage as a casual experiment, free to do as she pleased while I waited at home. But not anymore. Glancing at my phone, the time read 3:27 p.m. I assumed she would make her exit, perhaps call a friend to seek solace and justification for her actions, or maybe head straight to the man she was risking everything for, hoping he could offer her the comfort I was no longer willing to provide. Just when I thought I was moving past her behavior, my phone buzzed once more. Another message from Adam. "Dude, call me." My stomach twisted as I read Adam's text. He was usually laid back and joked around, but the serious tone of his message set off alarm bells in my head. Without a second thought, I called him, and he picked up almost immediately. "Bro, you won't believe this," I said, feeling the tension building in my chest. Adam responded in a hushed voice, revealing that Emily hadn't just been on a date the previous night. My heart stopped. "But she's been dating that guy for months," I protested, my jaw clenched. Adam assured me he had proof. Texts, screenshots, eyewitness accounts of them being intimate. It hit me hard, the realization sinking in. I should have seen it coming, should have known that someone capable of leaving so easily had likely already checked out of the relationship. Hearing it confirmed made it all too real. I inquired quietly yet firmly, eager for answers. Adam hesitated before revealing, "You really want to know?" I affirmed, prompting a brief pause before he dropped the bombshell. It was Ryan, the man from her office. The mention of Ryan stirred memories of all the time she had talked about him, insisting he was just a close work friend with an intriguing outlook. My heart sank upon the realization. It wasn't just the act of betrayal that chilled me to the core. It was the harsh truth that I had been deceived all along. Every gesture of affection, every laugh, every sweet goodnight kiss had all been part of a carefully constructed facade. Adam's voice broke the silence. "Are you still there, buddy?" I responded with unwavering resolve, "Yes, send me everything you have." As Adam confirmed, he had already shared the evidence. I scanned through the flood of screenshots. Texts between Emily and Ryan, photos capturing intimate moments, and a scene at a bar where they looked inseparable. It was a brutal awakening to the web of lies she had spun and the stark reality of her infidelity. He had never been married before. As I stared at the screen, a feeling deep inside me twisted into something unrecognizable. It wasn't anger or sadness, but rather clarity. I finally realized that this wasn't just one bad decision. It was who she had been all along. The next step came to me. By the time I looked up from my phone, darkness had already fallen outside. I had been sitting on the couch for over an hour, going through the evidence and slowly piecing together the reality of my marriage that I had been blind to for so long. The more I read, the more I understood that Emily had never anticipated losing me. She thought I would fight for her, chase after her, and prove my worth even after she had already decided to leave me behind. But I was no longer playing by her rules. I grabbed my laptop and opened a new browser tab. Step 1. Find a lawyer. I searched for a divorce attorney with excellent reviews specializing in cases involving infidelity. Within 10 minutes, I had found a suitable candidate. Appointment scheduled for the next morning. Next, I checked our shared bank accounts. Fortunately, Emily had not emptied them yet, but I wasn't willing to take any risks. I transferred my paycheck to a separate account solely under my name. I carefully reviewed the savings, documenting each transaction she had made in recent months. Moving on to step 3, I addressed the issue of locks and security. Realizing my oversight, I took proactive measures despite her departure with her belongings. I immediately contacted my security company and upgraded the system with cameras at both the front and back doors, as well as alerts sent directly to my phone. By the time I completed these tasks, I experienced a sense of empowerment that had eluded me for a long time. I now felt in control of my life, once again making my own choices and planning for my future. Emily, on the other hand, had become nothing more than a lesson learned the hard way. As I finished up on my laptop, a text message notification interrupted my thoughts. Upon opening it, I saw a message from Emily. It simply read, "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at the screen, noting the absence of an apology or any sign of remorse. It seemed she believed a mere conversation could mend the situation. I smirked to myself, realizing that her message only solidified my decision. Slowly, I typed back my reply. "We already did." And then, for the first time since this whole mess started, I blocked her number. The next morning, I woke up to something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. No tension in my chest, no paranoia about what Emily was doing behind my back, no heavy silence in the house thick with unspoken words and hidden betrayals. Just peace. I stretched, got out of bed, and went about my morning. Coffee, a quick workout, a shower. Everything felt normal, like I had shed some invisible weight that had been pressing down on me for years. But of course, life wasn't about to let me enjoy it for too long. At 9:37 a.m., my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. I swiped to answer. "Hello." There was a pause, then, "Hey, it's me, Emily." I let out a slow breath, gripping my coffee mug a little tighter. "Didn't take you long to find a new number to call from," she exhaled sharply. "You blocked me," I replied. "Yep." I took a sip of coffee. "What do you?" "I want a moment of silence." "Then I believe it's time we have a discussion." A quiet chuckle escaped me. We already have, she dismissed. Can we meet in person? My brows furrowed. Why the hesitation? Because I want to clarify, she added softer this time. I tensed, holding back the instinctive response to ask what she needed to explain. I already had all the answers. The messages, the pictures, her casual departure without a second thought. But then it struck me. She was unaware that I had gathered all that evidence. To her, I was still in the dark, unaware of more than the one date she had confessed to. This meant she might be gearing up to twist the story once more. I reclined in my seat, contemplating my choices. I could end the call, disregard her, walk away for good. Yet a part of me craved the moment she realized she wasn't in control anymore. Decision made, I uttered, sure, let's meet. This would be our final discussion. We rendezvoused at a serene cafe downtown, a neutral spot out in public, a place where I knew she wouldn't attempt any deceit. There was no grand entrance. I arrived first and ordered a black coffee, choosing the seat by the window to observe the passing crowd. At precisely 10:15 a.m., Emily walked in. Her appearance had changed, not dramatically but subtly. Her hair was pulled back, and she had skipped her usual meticulous makeup routine. She seemed different, not physically smaller but emotionally diminished, as if the consequences of her decisions were finally weighing on her. Spotting me, she hesitated briefly before approaching and greeting me with a simple hey as she sat down across from me. Instead of responding, I lifted an eyebrow, prompting her to speak. She nervously played with her cup, tracing its rim with a finger before finally voicing, I don't even know where to start. I interjected, my tone calm but firm, suggesting, how about starting with the truth? She swallowed and admitted, I never meant to hurt you. I couldn't help but release a short, incredulous laugh. Really? Because you didn't appear too concerned about that when you were preparing for your date. Her expression tensed as she retorted, it wasn't like that. I tilted my head, challenging her within. Tell me, Emily, how was it? Take a deep breath, she said, as if gearing up for a significant speech. I felt trapped in our marriage, like it was all just a routine. I started losing myself. And then Ryan entered the picture, and he was. I raised my hand to stop her. Hold on, she blinked. What? I already know, I replied calmly. I took out my phone, tapped the screen, and pushed it across the table. On the screen was a clear photo Adam had sent me. Emily and Ryan standing too close, his arm around her waist, her leaning into him, her expression drained of color. Where did you? She began, but I interrupted. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that you've been deceiving me for months. You didn't just feel stuck, and you weren't just seeking something new. You made choices. Multiple choices, and now you have to face the consequences. She looked down at the table, clutching her coffee cup as if it were her lifeline. She started, then faltered. I was going to tell you, I sighed. Emily, the only reason you're here right now is because you let the situation spiral out of control. If I had pleaded with you to stay, if I had taken you back, you would never have confessed the truth. Her silence was confirmation enough for me. Leaning forward slightly, I asked, tell me something, Emily. If I hadn't changed the locks, if I hadn't packed your things, would you still have gone out with him that night? She swallowed hard, hesitating before responding. I waited patiently as her eyes flicked away. I don't know, she finally admitted. I leaned back and declared, then we're finished here. Her expression shifted as she looked up at me in disbelief. Just like that? She questioned. Yes, I replied calmly. I could see her realization dawning, understanding that this time I wouldn't back down. Standing up, I grabbed my phone and left a few bills on the table for my coffee. I glanced at her one last time and said, I hope you find whatever it is you're searching for, Emily, but you won't find it with me. Without looking back, I walked away. In the weeks that followed that conversation, Emily attempted to reach out a few more times, texting from different platforms. I ignored ambiguous messages from rent numbers, simply stating, I just want to talk. After finalizing the divorce papers, everything is moving forward and I am doing well. In fact, I am better than ever. I am now living life on my own terms, free from walking on eggshells, being taken for granted, or waiting for someone who never truly valued me. As for Emily, the latest news I heard was that Ryan wasn't as enthusiastic as she had anticipated. Life has a way of imparting valuable lessons. A month ago, I believed my world had collapsed with the end of my relationship with Emily, fearing the loss of everything we had built together. However, I now realize that it was freedom all along. Since closing that chapter with Emily, I have transformed my life in unexpected ways. The divorce proceedings are progressing, and I have not been in touch with her recently. When she last tried to contact me, I chose not to open the message because I no longer care. This newfound indifference is the ultimate liberation. Experiencing a new beginning in life, turning a new page. A significant change I embraced was prioritizing myself after neglecting my own needs for years. I dedicated myself to my career, leading to a well-deserved promotion that I had previously overlooked pursuing. Consistently hitting the gym became a part of my routine, driven not by vengeance, but by the rewarding feeling of self-investment. I reignited past passions and hobbies that had fallen by the wayside, while I was overly focused on Emily's happiness as she searched for something new. Most importantly, I learned to embrace opportunities and say yes to life once more. Recently, my friend Adam invited me to a small gathering. Usually, I would have declined, avoiding inquiries about the divorce. However, this time I accepted the invitation, and it was there that I crossed paths with her. No, this isn't a fairy tale romance where I instantly found a perfect soulmate to mend my wounds. Life doesn't unfold like that. What I did discover was a genuine connection. Her name is Claire. She possesses a delightful sense of humor, down-to-earth nature, and an absence of manipulative behavior. Our conversations began to flow naturally. Having light-hearted conversations, sharing laughter, and forming genuine connections felt like a breath of fresh air for me. For once, I didn't have to be on edge waiting for something to go wrong. Simply living in the moment was all I needed. The final straw came when I unexpectedly received news about Emily just as I thought she was completely out of my life. Adam shared a screenshot of her recent social media post with me. It made me realize that sometimes we only appreciate what we had after it's gone. I found myself laughing wholeheartedly because the truth was that Emily never truly cared for me. She craved control and options, and when she realized I was no longer one of them, she started regretting her choices. However, by then I had already moved on, and it was the best decision I ever made. If someone had told me a few months ago that removing Emily from my life would be so liberating, I wouldn't have believed them. Today, I am thriving. I wake up every morning without that sinking feeling in my stomach. I no longer have to question my worth or is your wife messaging, or is she genuinely content with me? Because I am now content with myself. And if there's one takeaway from all of this, it's that sometimes parting ways isn't a defeat, it's a victory. Walking away, that turned out to be the most beneficial decision I ever made,